when it will rain. All this is beyond the limits of man. And that's why the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, nobody would know when rain will come other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And is the attempt wrong? Is it a wrong attempt? Is it a wrong attempt to try to make artificial rain?
Wallahi, I'm not saying it's a wrong attempt, but it's too much of a human conceit, actually.
Yes.
The Prophet told us, do the rain prayer. When you have rain stopping from coming to you, just salatul istisqa.
Yes.
And ask for the rain from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the rain is part of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it can only be asked from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So I think since this is the way, I think the scientific experiments would not reach a precise way of...
as I said, you see, it's very costly, first of all, very expensive, and nobody can control where it's going to rain. Unless you are dealing with a vast country like USA, for example, or Russia, or China, something like that. Wherever it will come down, it can be of use, you see. But when you are in a small country like Kuwait or Qatar, you cannot do that.
Yes.
It will be too much of a human conceit, actually.
Okay. Zabihullah, any further questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, moving to Abdurrahman.
I wonder, in this verse, Allah talked only about the water that comes from the sky. I mean, the rain, which comes from clouds.
Yes.
Why didn't this verse mention the water that gushes from springs? I mean, they can also include bubbles and minerals and everything.
You mean water coming from the ground, groundwater? Well, because you see, this groundwater originally came from rain. You see, it's part of the rain. Because once the rain falls down on a highly porous rock, you see, it penetrates the spores and, of course, becomes stored in the ground. So if it mentioned the water flowing on the surface, that's what you see. But if the groundwater gushes out from the ground, forms a spring, it will also can form foam. But being of the same origin, there is no need to repeat it, particularly as the verse comes in giving a parable, giving an example, you see. Allah is saying that the difference between truthfulness and falsehood is the difference between valuable minerals that are deposited at the bottom of a running stream and these gas bubbles that are distributed at the surface. Whatever beautiful they may appear, they have no value and they are absolutely worthless.
But if we compare the number of verses that deal with rainwater and spring water, we will note that the verses dealing with rainwater is more.
Definitely.
Does this mean that the origin is rainwater, or
no? The origin is rainwater. Groundwater is part of the rain that comes down, and the Qur'an spells that out beautifully 14 centuries ago. While scientists worried really for centuries, where did this groundwater come from? To the extent that many Westerners believed that it's seepage from the sea, literal seepage from the sea. The Quran says, وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ, you see, and you are not the ones who store it. You see, so really the groundwater is part of the rain, and the original water gushed out from within the earth, from the zone of weakness. And it came up as highly heated vapors. Allah has caused the lower part of the atmosphere to cool gradually upwardly. It condensed, came down as rain, ran on the surface, accumulated in depressed areas as seas and oceans and lakes and rivers and the like. And then Allah has circulated that water in what we call the water cycle around the earth. So the sun evaporates the water, it goes to sky, condenses, comes down as rain. So the original process is rain. Anything else comes secondary from the original source, which is the rainwater.
Okay, do we have a certain estimation of how groundwater is distributed on Earth?
You see, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every country, every piece of land is composed of certain layers of rocks. Some of these layers are porous and permeable. Some are highly impervious. So if rain comes on an outcrop of a porous bed, a porous sequence. It will infiltrate and become stored. It will go with the depth of the ground of the bed itself, becomes stored and actually confined in what we call an aquifer, a stored amount of water. Aqua is water in Latin.
It's like a basin. Like a basin.
Like a basin or something like that. But of course, you see, the water is not like a lake. It's as thin films within the grains of the rock, you see. So it's stored there to the time when people need it, and Allah knows in His knowledge that time will come when people will flourish in that area and they will need water. Like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has no rivers. But during the previous rainy periods, Allah has stored at least 15 different aquifers for Saudi Arabia. You get zones, porous rocks, impervious, porous, impervious, porous, impervious. And if you go from west to east, you will find many aquifers. And actually the Saudis are mainly living on these aquifers, although they are trying, of course, to use desalination and distillation of the seawater. But they have been living for centuries on the groundwater. So the groundwater is originally from rain. And that's why Allah did not repeat the parable for water gushing out as springs from within the ground, because it's originally coming from rain.
So originally Zamzam is coming from rain.
Zamzam is a miracle by itself. Zamzam is coming from rain as well.
Yes.
But you see, people who know the structure of the rocks on top of which the Kaaba is built, these are highly metamorphosed rocks. And when you get metamorphism, you get partial melting of the minerals. And these partially melted minerals infill the pores.
Yes.
So you find absolutely massive rocks with no porosity, no permeability. And that's why if we tell people that we have a well that gushed out in Mecca and started flowing for 4,000 years within such type of rocks, nobody can believe this. 4,000 years flowing from highly impervious and highly impermeable rocks is a miracle by itself. And unless the tunnels around the Kaaba have been cut down, people realize that there are thin cracks along which water having the similar qualities as the Zamzam water came out into these tunnels. So they note that these cracks are something unique. Where did they come from? And the Prophet explained this, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said it's when Hajar, may Allah be pleased with her, were left with her little baby in this area where there was no people, no plantation, nothing, no source of living whatsoever. And Ibrahim alayhi salam left a bag of water for them and a small bag of dates. And she ran after him. "Oh Ibrahim, to whom are you leaving us?" He wouldn't answer. "To whom are you leaving us?" He wouldn't answer. Then by her intuition that her husband is one of the mightiest messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she asked, "Allahu amaraka bihada?" Did Allah order you to do that? Then he turned his face and said, "Yes." And with a genuine belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she said, "Idhan lan yudayya'ana." If Allah has instructed you to do so, He will never leave us to be lost. Immediately Allah sent Jibreel alayhi salam, Archangel Jibreel. He struck this solid rock by his wing or his end, as the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and water gushed out. And he said, "Rahim Allahu Umma Ismail, lawla annaha zammatha lakanat aynan." May Allah have mercy on Ismail, because the mother of Ismail, unless she encircled it, it would have been a lake. Yes. And this is a miracle that cannot be explained in terms of normal acquired sciences.
That was very informative. Thank you very much, Professor Zaghlol El-Naggar, for being here with us. It was a pleasure to have you. My dear guests, Abdurrahman, Ismail, and Zabihullah, thank you very much for being here with us. My dear viewers, with this we come to the end of this episode of Quran and Science. See you in the coming edition. Thanks. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.